Good morning. This morning we're looking at writing, and we are going to be having a look at the writing paper, the writing assessment or test. So you should be able to see it there on the screen, the paper. This would be what it would look like if you printed a paper copy of the test. When you go to the centre to do your test, you will be doing it on a computer online. There'll be exactly the same questions and information. We're going to look at it on this version today, just because it's easier for me to type it in and for you to see it. You can do the practice papers online. If you were at our reading session yesterday, you would have seen what it looks like online. Okay, so if we have a look at the front of the paper, and again, this same information will be available to you when you do your test. We've got 2 questions, 2 activities, and they have the same amount of marks awarded. So that means during your test, which you get 1 hour for, you should be allocating the same amount of time to both tasks. So don't spend 45 minutes on activity 1 trying to make it absolutely perfect, and then you don't have time to do activity 2 and you don't get the marks for it. Make sure you balance the time, it's really important. So let's scroll down and have a look at the questions. So as I said, there are 2 activities, and it will tell you what they are about in the introduction. So there's some information provided, and then you're going to get asked to write a given document. So it's important that you know what the features of that document are. So for this test, this practice test, the first activity is to write a letter. And again, there's some guidance there on timings. So for reading the test information and the task, for planning, and at the end, proofreading your work to check it makes sense, checking that your punctuation and grammar is as it should be. And just to note here, it says 41% of the marks are for spelling, punctuation and grammar. So it is important that you know how to use the punctuation and grammar correctly, and that your spelling is of a good standard. Apologies, there we go. Okay, so let's look at activity 1. Write a letter. This activity has a possible 22 marks. Complete the activity in the space provided. An environmental expert recently gave a talk at your place of learning. The expert talked about some practical things that you could do to help the environment. This was the last slide from their presentation. What can you do? Reduce, reuse and recycle waste. Volunteer, pick up litter, plant trees, change the way you travel. You have been asked to write a letter of thanks to the expert. In your letter, you should explain what you have learned from the talk, say why these environmental issues are important to you, say what you might do as a result of the talk. And the address for the expert is given to you there, the name and the address. Okay, so you've read your task, you've read what information they want you to include, and now you're going to plan it. So you will be given some paper to write on if you want to plan the task. Now, once you know what type of document you're going to have to write, then it's worth just making a quick note of the features so that you don't forget anything. So for a letter, does anyone want to tell us what some of the features are of a letter?
Is it salutational?
Yes, one salutation. So I'm going to write that. Before we get to the salutation, what would come above that? So above the dear part of your letter.
The address,
Just hold on. Sorry, we do need the address. I'm not sure why it's saying, my laptop's saying it's battery running low, but it's actually plugged in. Just hold on one moment. Let's check that nothing's come out. Just bear with me. Okay, sorry about that. I think we had a loose wire. Yes, so we need the address. So whose address do we need? So whose address needs to be at the top of the letter?
Your receiver.
Yes, so the recipient of the letter, and we need another address as well. We also need our own address.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and our own address comes first. And after the salutation, any other features?
The subject or the heading?
Yeah, sometimes you would have a heading. I don't think we need one for this letter, but certainly if you were having to write an official letter, so if it was about an appointment, perhaps an official appointment, you might put a heading. So I don't think we need one, but it is something to think about. We also need the date. So when we start writing our letter, we're going to need an introduction. So the person reading it knows why they are receiving this letter. And then if we look back at the task, it tells us what information. So we're going to use our paragraphs to say what we have learned. So if we look at the last slide, the reason that's there is because they want you to think about what might have been in the talk. So there's obviously been some information about reducing, reusing and recycling, volunteering, and changing the way you travel. So we could just quickly write what we're going to include. And again, let's refer back to the task. We need to have a paragraph talking about why it's important to us. So as you can see, this is not going to get marked. So it's just to help us get our thoughts in order. So it doesn't need to be in proper sentences. Nobody's going to, they won't even look at it. It's just for yourself to make sure that the task itself is done well. So why it's important. So I'm going to think of a few ideas, your own beliefs, values, and other reasons why it might be important to you, future generations. It's just a few initial ideas, getting them down so you don't forget them and getting them into an order ready to write your letter. and it mentions volunteering. They obviously want that in our letter. So we could put community relations. So just a few ideas. And then again, let me refer back. So they also want us to include what we might do as a result of the talk. So we need a paragraph on what actions we're going to take. So we could have a tree planting project, because if you have a look, that was mentioned on the slide. So that's something we can include. Do include, if they give you an image like this and there's some extra information, make sure you include it, because that's what they want you to do. That's why they've put it there. And I'm going to put travel to work, because that was also changing the way we travel. So I'm going to talk about travelling to work. And then at the end of a letter, we need to sign off. So we need to make sure we include that. So when you do your own plan, you might want to write a bit more than that, a few more of your own ideas, but that's just to give you an indication of how you might plan. So just think about, right, I'm writing a letter, what features, quickly write them down to make sure you don't forget anything. And then just a bit of the information that you're going to include. Okay, so then I am going to write my letter. So as we said in our plan, we need to put the address. So the sender's address, and you'll be able to do this formatting as well. The sender's address goes on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to use a generic name. It said in the task that we were at it was an education institution. So I'm just going to put UK Versity. Just a made up address is fine. Okay, so now I need to write the sender's address, the recipient's address, and that was given to me. So I'm going to copy and paste that. And we need the date, so I'll just put today's date. Oh, I'm in the future there, a few 100,000 years. And we need our salutation, which one of you mentioned, of course. So dear Dr. Martain, and the salutation would have a comma after it. And remember, you are going to be marked on correct punctuation. So our first paragraph. So I'm going to go have a quick look at my plan. So I want to write an introduction. So why am I writing? So if we think about the task, you've been asked to write a letter of thanks to the expert who did a talk at your place of learning. So I'm going to refer to that in my introduction. So Dear Dr. Martin, I'm writing on behalf of the students and staff of UK Versity to thank you for your recent talk about the environment. So that's exactly what the task has asked us to do. And just outline a little bit about what we're going to write our next paragraphs about. So an introduction to our letter. So we can say what the talk. So how interesting it was. So I'm just introducing what I'm going to write about in the body of the letter. It asked us to say what we'd learned. So that's why I'm including this sentence. The issues are important to me personally, and I was looking forward to learning about some practical actions I can take. Okay, so our next paragraph, look at my plan. So we're going to talk about what we learned, and remember we want to include this information. If this is the last slide, then this must have been in the talk. And you will need to be thinking about your the sentences you're writing. Are you using a mixture of simple and complex sentences? Remember, we don't just want one or the other, we want a mixture of those. It keeps the writing interesting for the reader, and it's important to show the assessor that you can use both. So during the talk, the focus on, and I'm quoting this from his slide, and presumably he would have said this during his talk as well. Made me think about how the focus should not So you might have to pause sometimes, have a think about the most appropriate punctuation. So I'm thinking now I'm going to give an example. So I think a comma will do rather than a full stop, it would be better. So I'm having to imagine writing this letter. Obviously, a lot of the information I'm going to have to pad out from my own imagination, as we're only given quite brief instructions. So one example of reducing impact would be to buy less new clothes. I'm not very happy with this sentence because it seems a bit too long to me. Let me have a look at it. During the talk, the focus on reduce, reuse, recycling made me think about how the focus should not just be on recycling, but on reducing our impact. For example, no, I think that's okay. So that's a complex sentence, isn't it? So that should be fine, but that's what you should be doing, refining as you go along, as well as when you get to the end. So I'm going to change this word because I've repeated it and it doesn't sound very good. So I'll just change that. So I'm just imagining what he would have spoken about. And trying to include the idea of community and volunteering that was on the slide. Okay, so also, whilst you're writing, you should be thinking about the vocabulary you are using. So the examiner would want to see that you're using a variety of vocabulary, not just simple words, but if you imagine this doctor has come and done this talk, he wants people to be involved, so it talks about volunteering, so you could use some words such as engagement, enthusiasm. So yeah, just picking your wording, your vocabulary carefully, thinking about how you could improve it as well, so perhaps when you're proofreading at the end. So in our letter, we were asked to say what actions we were going to take. So I'm indicating that we are already thinking about that. And I need to talk now, if I look at my plan, about why it's important to me. So I'm going to talk about my beliefs and values, the importance for future generations and of the local community. So the environmental issues highlighted in your talk are important to me because. So if we look at the plan, so what kind of sentence might we write? Does anyone want to suggest what we could write about why it's important? So why would caring about the environment, recycling and so on, why might that be important to somebody? So when you are doing your own task, there won't be information there, you will have to imagine it. So that's what I'm doing now. So they're important to me because I want to, so let's think about future generations. I want to protect the world for future generations. So this, I believe, so because we're talking about our own, if we remind ourselves of the task, why it's important to me. So I'm talking about beliefs, so making sure I'm staying on task. So I believe so I've talked about why environmental issues are important to me. I could also talk about the volunteering part is making me think about the local community. So I could write about why that is important as well. So you're not going to have a spell check function on the test online, like I've obviously got here where it highlights it. So just be careful with your spelling, but obviously that's something that you can address when you come to proofread, because obviously when you're typing, it's easy to make simple errors. So I've written about why it's important to me, and now I'm going to move on to my next paragraph about the actions that we could take, because that is part of the task, to say what actions we will take. So again, you're having to use your imagination. So, and it said about, if we looked at the original, the question and the slide that we're asked to refer to, talks about planting trees. So that would be a good thing to refer to as an action, or you could choose the litter picking. I'm going to go for the trees and talk about that as an action. So I will read through it all once I finish writing it. So I'm telling him I'm using his ideas, or her, I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman. So what actions have we already taken and what are we planning to do? So we've contacted the local council about some land for planting trees. So then we'll talk about what happens next. So something we've already done and something that's going to happen next. So let's remind ourselves. So it also asks about, it also mentions changing the way we travel. So I'm going to include that here too. So that's another action we're taking. So as an organisation, because remember this is being sent from an educational institution. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so I've included what's been asked of me, but it wouldn't be the correct way to finish to now just put yours sincerely. So I want a closing paragraph. So why are we writing in the first place? Because this doctor has been to visit the college. So we can say we hope you enjoy visiting our college, inspiring us. And we could ask him to come back. And then to finish a letter, when we know the person's name that we're writing to, we use yours sincerely. And a comma, and then we put our name. So when we look back at our talk, our letter, if we just read through it, if there's anything that you think could be improved or changed, now's the time to do it. If you want to suggest anything, please do unmute and make any suggestions to improve or any punctuation that you might change, anything like that at all. That's what proofreading is for. So, dear Dr. Martin, let me start right at the top actually. So let me check. I've got my right hand sender's address and name, and I've got my recipient's name and address on the left. I've got the date and I've got my salutation. So that's all good. That's all there. I'm writing on behalf of the students and staff of UK Versity to thank you for your recent talk about the environment. The talk was very interesting and informative, and we all learned a lot. The issues are very important to me personally, so I was looking forward to learning some practical actions I can take. During the talk, the focus on reduce, reuse, recycle made me think about how the aim should not just be on recycling, but on reducing our impact, for example, by buying less new clothing and reusing, such as plastic bags and packaging. Although it was disappointing to hear about current low levels of engagement in the area, I was enthused by your ideas on how to encourage people in the local community to get involved in initiatives such as litter picking and planting trees. I think we can get started on planning for this straight away and hopefully improve things in the area. So I'm quite pleased. I've got some good vocabulary in there, a mixture of sentence lengths and punctuation. I've correctly used my commas, full stops, and I've also managed to include an exclamation mark. So the assessor will be expecting to see you use more than just full stops and commas. The environmental issues highlighted in your talk are important to me because I want to protect the world for future generations. So good, we've got our paragraph here about why it's important to us. I believe we currently use too many resources, buy too many new things such as clothing, and don't recycle everything that we can. I'm going to change that because it's not a really formal letter, but I'm writing to an academic, someone who's quite important in this area, it seems. So I'm going to make it a bit more formal by taking out that contraction and changing it to do not. I think the community working together will improve matters by, for example, improving relationships, building new friendships, and this is where I am checking for my spelling mistakes and correcting them, and encouraging people to care for our local and the global environment. As I mentioned above, we want to get started on some of your ideas straight away. We have already contacted the local council about some land for planting trees. Once agreed, we'll form a planning committee to organise the event and inform the local community. We are also now working on a travel strategy to encourage staff and students to use public transport and to cycle or walk to work when possible. I hope you enjoyed visiting our college. Again, spelling errors, and inspiring us with your talk. We hope you can come back for another visit in a few months so we can update you on our progress. Yours sincerely, Jane Smith. Okay, so I think I've proofread that quite well. I've made a few corrections. Okay, anybody got anything they want to add or suggest? Okay, any questions? Okay, good. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So obviously I'm talking and explaining things as I'm doing this, and so I've gone a bit over the time, but it's not, I think if I was just doing this myself, then I would have used the correct amount of time, half an hour. So we're a bit past 9:30 because, as I've said, I was introducing it at the beginning and talking you through it, what decisions I was making. But yeah, you should be keeping your eye on the time. Just before we start the activity 2, we probably will overrun because again, we should be using about half an hour for this. So if you do have another lesson or you need to go for any other reason at 10, that's fine. Just leave the Zoom and the recording will be shared next week. You can catch up later. Okay, so our second activity is to write an article. You've been asked to write an article for a newsletter. The article will give advice to young people who are new to your place of work or study. In your article, you could give the following information: what to expect in a typical day, comments on your own experiences at the place of work or study, advice on how to make a good start. Okay, so just have a look, think about that for a moment. I'll just give you a few moments. Okay, so again, we've got space for planning. So first of all, we're writing an article, so we could jot down what we need to include in an article. Can anybody remember any of the features of an article? Okay, pardon?
Title.
Title, good. Just make this
Title or topic, yeah.
I'll just make this a little bit bigger. Hold on, so everyone can see it. So title, what else?
Names.
Names. Did you say names?
Yeah, like name, your name.
So it may have the author's name in, but that's not something we would necessarily need to include as a feature.
Okay.
So if it was actually published in a newspaper or a newsletter, sometimes the author's name is there, but not always. So we usually would have a brief introductory paragraph. Oh, anything else? So we have our main title or heading, but what else do we have in an article? So we're going to have subheadings. And a number of paragraphs. So it's split into paragraphs. So under a subheading, there might be one paragraph or there might be 2 or 3. But we're organising our article into paragraphs. Also in an article, we're going to include some facts. So there might be some numerical information, but we're also going to have
Data.
our own opinions. Pardon?
Data.
Yes, yeah. So when we have facts, we might include some data. Obviously, because we're in a test and we don't know what we're going to have to write, we won't have data. We'll just be making it up to show that we can, we know what the features are. And if we were writing this for real, we would be researching and including, you know, existing data. But for the purposes of the test, we will just be making that up. Okay, so now I've remembered what is in an article, what I need to include. I can pad my plan out a little bit. So in my introductory paragraph, I'm going to remind myself of the task. So a typical day. My own experiences and how to make a good start. So so I might include a little bit about what I'm going to say about this company. So I'm going to add a bit of guidance as well. So I need to, so my subheadings will go before each paragraph. So my paragraphs, what shall I include? Well, I need to include about the day. So a typical day. What else do I need to include? Maybe the dress code. Some do's and don'ts, because I need to offer some I'm going to offer some advice on how to make a good start. So that would be good to include, maybe some do's and don'ts. And maybe some advice about getting to work. So just a few initial ideas, as I've said, to help you. And then I want my final paragraph as well, where I'm going to sum up a little bit, and also think it would be good there to have maybe a good luck message because it's for somebody new. Okay, so I've remembered what the features are and I've got an idea now of what I'm going to write. It may be that you want to spend a bit longer on your plan, adding a few more ideas before you start writing. And that's great, that's fine. Make sure you don't spend any more than 10 minutes on your plan because you want to make sure you've got plenty of time to write, to think about what you're writing, what you're including, all the punctuation and grammar and so on, and to proofread it at the end. Okay, so I've had a little bit of time to think about this when I was planning for this session. So I have decided I'm going to write a letter, write an article, sorry, about a company called the Printing Press. So my heading is going to be welcome to the, and I need my capital letters for the name. So again, just make this bigger so you can see it. Perhaps I'm going to make this even bigger because this is my heading. So it's an article, it's a welcome for new staff. So I want it to look welcoming. I'm not sure why. Don't worry about the formatting on your test, that won't be an issue. So there's my title. But now I am going to write my introductory paragraph. I want to distinguish the title from the rest of it so it's bigger. And I'm going to write my introduction. So we want to make it seem welcoming and positive because it's for new members of staff. So just outline that I'm going to give some company guidance. And that it's to help them get off to a great start. So again, thinking about the sentence length, a mixture of sentences, simple sentence to start, and then we have got some more complex, longer sentences. Okay, so I've done my introductory paragraph. It shouldn't be more than really 2 or 3 sentences, and then I'll have my first subheading. And remember, in the task, I'm asked to say about a typical day. So let's give that as my first subheading, and I'm going to make it bold. So I'm going to put about the times we open. And I'm going to get a rhetorical question in here. So an article would often find a rhetorical question. It engages the reader, makes them think and want to carry on reading. So if you're writing an article, it's a good feature to include. So just a brief explanation of what might be going on. So I've talked about the morning, so what else happens? You can write what you want, really, as long as it makes sense in the context. So, you know, you could put anything really about what might happen in a typical day. So I'm going to include what time it closes as well. Okay, so just a short paragraph, few sentences, and let's have another subheading about the dress code, because we want to help people get off to a good start as per our task. So that would be helpful for people. So I'm going to imagine that this is quite a modern, vibrant office with a smart casual dress code, sorry. And I'm going to make it a bit fun and so again, thinking about using a variety of punctuation. Okay, so now I want to write some do's and don'ts. And I think I'm going to do some bullet points here. So, some do's and don'ts. So, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. What else could we do? Some questions. I'm not going to write too many, as obviously it is, you know, we need to think of the time. So what we could have a don't take work home. You on? Okay, let's leave it there. You get the idea. Okay, so I've also included some bullet points there. And I'm just going to refresh my memory of looking at the task again. So we've done a typical day. I am going to need to put in some comments about my own experiences and making a good impression. Okay. So let's do that as our next heading. So I had actually forgotten that that was part of the task. So that's why it's good to keep checking, refreshing your memory. So you can get carried away writing. You know, the task is interesting, you're enjoying writing it, and you're, you know, looking at the time. Just make sure that you're always referring back to the task so that you're on task and you're not going off on a tangent or forgetting to include something that they've asked you to include. So making a good impression. So how could someone do that? So I'm going to put my own experience in because that was part of the task. When okay, so I've got in there how to make a good impression, which was a requirement of the task, and also some of my personal experience. I also want to put some facts in. I've got lots of opinion in here. So So I'm going to put that there was a staff survey, and then I can put some numerical data. And just to show what else I can do in my writing, I'm going to put a quote as well. Also gives the percentage authenticity that I'm quoting from this survey that I'm imagining took place. So now I'm going to have a final paragraph. I don't need a heading from a final paragraph, just like the introduction. So just a couple of sentences. I'm going to wish them good luck. Okay, so now I need to proofread it, check my spelling, punctuation, and so on. So the printing press is a great place to work. We have high expectations of all colleagues. But your hard work will be rewarded with a variety of benefits. We have some company guidance to enable you to get off to a great start and enable you to understand our company ethos. So I don't like that because I've repeated it doesn't sound very good. We have some, so I'll change one of those to allow instead of enable. The company day, so I've got my heading at the top, my main title, and now I've got my subheadings after my introduction. The office opens at 8 AM each day. Whilst you get started on your first task of the day, why not take advantage of the great free coffee that is available to all staff? So I'm really pleased I got a rhetorical question in there. The office is busy all day. In the morning, we will be taking orders and meeting clients. After lunch, there is a buzz around the office as designs are completed and clients arrive to collect their orders. The office closes at 6 PM. Dress code, we want you to feel comfortable at work, but also make a good impression on clients. Therefore, we have a smart casual dress code which enables you to express your individuality. If anyone spots anything they think is an error or needs correcting or anything to improve, please feel free to jump in. I'm happy for you to do that. Do's and don'ts. So again, I've used another feature here, got some bullet points in. Do get to work on time. Do ask questions if you're unsure. Don't take work home. Your work-life balance is important to us. And in fact, a dash, I don't think I should really use. I'm going to use a colon. So again, I'm showing the assessor the different types of punctuation that I can understand and use correctly. Making a good impression. We want you to feel part of the team from day one. Talk to your colleagues and get to know their different roles. If you see a task that needs doing, offer to help. When I started working, so I've got my personal experience in there. When I started working at the printing press, I felt very unsure, but by offering to help colleagues, was soon able to understand how the company works. Show initiative and work hard, and you will become valued. So this is why it's good to proofread. A valued member of staff in no time. In our most recent staff survey, 100% of staff said that they feel happy at work. So again, I'm showing the assessor that I can use facts and opinion. I've put some numerical data in there, and I've used a quotation using my inverted commas correctly. And then my final paragraph, welcome to the tram, that's not right, is it? The team. We all look forward to getting to know you and having you as part of our company. Good luck. Okay. So, Does anyone have any comments or questions about that task? So the task will vary. Any of the genres or document types that we've looked at could be asked of you. So a letter, an article, a report, a newsletter article, it could be, or a newspaper. You know, just think about all the things we've looked at. You need to be showing that you can use your punctuation and grammar correctly, that you can use a variety of vocabulary and a variety of sentence lengths. So whatever the subject matter is not that important, because you are just going to have to make that up, really. It's writing in a way that shows that you can use all those other things. Variety of vocabulary, correct spelling, punctuation, and grammar, and that you know the features of the different text types. Okay. I'm not sure if you were all in the session yesterday, but if you go to the NCFE website, you can either have a practice using the online system, which is a really good idea because it gives you a practice run of what it will look like on the screen when you go to do your test and how it all works. But you can also download paper copies, and I will put a link to those pages in the WhatsApp chat, because they can be a bit tricky to find if you don't know where you're looking on the NCFE website. So I'll put a link to both of those in the group chat so you can have a practice yourself, and you can also read the mark scheme. So have a look at the mark scheme so that you know what they want you to include. It tells you, I've got one here. Let's find it. No, I've not got it open, sorry. Yes, so let me just share something different with you. So this is the mark scheme. So it will give you an idea for each question, each task, how you can get the maximum marks. So it'll tell you what will give you 1 mark, what will give you 2 marks, and what will give you 3 marks. And obviously we are aiming for 3 marks for everything, ideally. Okay, so if there aren't any questions, then we'll finish this session now. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thanks, everyone.
Sorry.
Thank you. Bye.